I never imagined my marriage would end with the entire neighborhood standing on their porches, watching in stunned, frozen disbelief. If you had asked me a year ago what my life looked like, I would have said, quiet, steady, ordinary. I'm Ethan Harper, 33, systems analyst, predictable almost to a fault. I liked routines. I liked calm. I liked believing my world was intact. My wife Megan, she used to like those things too. Or at least I thought she did. The cracks started small, the way they always do. A late-night work meeting. A sudden interest in hot yoga despite never having cared about fitness before. A new perfume she insisted was just a free sample. Nothing loud enough to set off alarms, just enough to sting. But the truth didn't come from any detective work on my part. It came from someone I least expected. His wife. Her name was Allison Brooks. I had never met her before the afternoon she knocked on my door. Her eyes were red, her hands shaking, gripping her phone so tightly the case had cracked along the edges. "Are you Ethan?" she asked, her voice barely holding together. "Yes," I said slowly. "Can I help you? I think our spouses are having an affair." She didn't say it dramatically. She didn't raise her voice. She just handed me her phone like someone surrendering evidence they wished they'd never found. There were screenshots, dozens of messages between my wife Megan and a man named Connor Brooks. Married, father of 2, living 4 houses down the cul-de-sac in our quiet Charlotte suburb. "I miss the way you touch me. Can't stop thinking about last night. He's asleep. Come over." I felt my chest hollow out. Allison swallowed hard. "I didn't want to believe it either, but I saw him leaving your house last week when you weren't home." She hesitated. "I'm sorry, Ethan. You didn't deserve this. No one prepares you for how betrayal feels in real time. It's not a sharp pain. It's slow, like your life quietly detaching from itself." I thanked her, though I don't remember how. After she left, I sat on the couch for almost an hour before I could stand again. It wasn't anger that hit first. It was grief. Grief for the marriage I thought I had. Grief for the woman I thought Megan was. When she came home that evening, tossing her keys onto the counter as if it were just any other Tuesday, I already knew. I didn't want theatrics. I didn't want a shouting match. I needed truth even if it ruined me. "Who is Connor?" I asked. She froze, the kind of stillness that tells you the answer before words do. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. "Ethan, please don't do this tonight." "Do what?" I asked, the man whose wife just showed me everything. Her eyes widened. Shame flickered across her face. But not regret. Regret is heavier, slower, realer. What I saw was panic about being caught. She sat down, hands pressed to her temples. "We didn't mean for it to happen." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "You accidentally fell into bed with a married man?" "We were lonely," she whispered. "Both of us. It wasn't love. It was an escape." Escape. The word tasted like sand in my teeth. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I didn't even cry. Not then. I just stood there looking at a woman I no longer recognized. "I want you to pack a bag," I said quietly. "You're staying at your sister's for now." She blinked like she hadn't expected consequences. "Ethan, please. This is our home." "Not tonight." That was the night everything changed. But what I didn't know, what no one could have predicted, was that Connor's wife and family were about to unleash something so brutal, so meticulously executed, that even my anger paled in comparison. And when they did, the entire street watched it unfold like a scene ripped from a tragedy. But no one dared intervene because it wasn't loud or violent or dramatic. It was worse. It was public, personal, and perfectly calculated. A kind of revenge that didn't just punish the guilty. It exposed them to everyone. The next morning, I woke up to a flood of messages from neighbors. First I ignored them. I didn't have the energy to explain anything. But by the 5th notification, all saying some version of "Ethan, are you okay?" I knew something else had happened. When I stepped outside, I saw Allison standing across the street in her driveway. Her arms were folded, her expression calm in a way that scared me more than anger ever could. "Morning, Ethan," she said softly. "I'm sorry you have to see this, but you deserve to know everything." I followed her gaze. Every single one of Connor's mistakes, every message, every photo, every timestamp, every sordid detail, had been printed in large, bold font and stapled along the inside of the Brooks family's tall wooden privacy fence. Dozens and dozens of sheets. A timeline of betrayal arranged like a crime scene investigation. Their backyard faced the street. The fence ran parallel to the main sidewalk. Anyone walking, jogging, or driving by could read it all. But that wasn't the shocking part. Connor was on his knees beside the fence, scrubbing desperately at the wood with a bucket of soapy water and a sponge. His face was red, his hair matted with sweat, his clothes soaked through. Allison stood above him. She didn't yell. She didn't hit him. She didn't even look angry. She looked done. Completely and utterly done. I approached slowly. "Allison, is this?" "It's not for humiliation," she said, cutting me off gently. "Not really. It's for clarity. For me, for him, for anyone who ever thought we were the perfect family. I want the truth out where I can't pretend anymore." Her voice didn't shake. She wasn't unhinged. She wasn't vengeful. She was a woman who had simply stopped lying to herself. Connor finally noticed me. He looked broken. Eyes swollen, breathing ragged. "Ethan, I swear I never wanted." I raised a hand. "Don't. We're not doing that. Not today." He swallowed hard and nodded. By then, neighbors had stepped out onto their porches. Not crowding, not gawking. Just silently present. It was the kind of quiet that presses on your ribs, the kind that carries judgment without a single word spoken. I saw Mrs. Delgado from next door clutching her morning coffee, lips pressed into a thin, disapproving line. I saw the retired couple across the street whispering to each other, shaking their heads. I saw teenagers pretending not to look while very much looking. And then I saw Megan. She must have driven over after hearing about the commotion. When she climbed out of her car and saw the fence, her face drained of every last drop of color. "Oh my God," she whispered. When her eyes met mine, something shifted, fear replacing whatever was left of guilt. "Allison," Megan breathed, stepping closer. "Please, you didn't have to do this." "I didn't do it for you," Allison replied, her tone polite but ice-cold. "Or for Ethan. Or for the neighbors. I did it for myself and for my kids." She turned to me. "I'm taking the children to my sisters in Raleigh. I don't want them in this house while I figure out what's next." Then she faced her husband again, voice low enough that only the four of us could hear. "You broke us. So you can clean up what's left." She walked away without looking back. Megan moved beside me, voice thick with panic. "Ethan, we need to leave. Everyone is staring." "They're staring because of what you did," I said quietly. She flinched, but she didn't deny it. For the first time since this all began, the weight on my chest eased. Not because I wanted revenge, but because the truth was finally out in the open. No more pretending. No more half answers. The world had shifted, and I wasn't carrying the shame alone anymore. "What happens now?" she whispered. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But whatever happens, it starts with you taking responsibility." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. For once she had no defense, no excuse or spin. And as the neighborhood stood watching, as Connor scrubbed that fence, bearing every lie he'd ever told, as Allison drove away with their children, I realized something. This wasn't revenge. This was exposure. Pure, unfiltered truth, too heavy for silence to bury. By the end of the day, the fence was clean, but the damage remained carved into the air between every house on our street. People would forget the papers, the scene, the spectacle, but they wouldn't forget the honesty that ripped through the illusions we all lived under. Later that night, as I sat alone in my living room, I felt something strange. Not bitterness. Not rage. Not even sadness. Just clarity. Sometimes the most brutal revenge isn't destruction. It's revelation. And once the truth stands naked in front of everyone, there's no going back to the life you had before. Not for me. Not for Megan. And definitely not for the man who thought he could get away with everything in the dark. Because in the end, Allison didn't punish him. She just turned on the light.